On this channel, we talk about watches that you should buy all the time. From the best watches under $250 to the best starter watches for new enthusiasts. But one thing that I haven't covered yet is watches that you should completely avoid. And believe me, there is a lot of them out there. From terribly built to insanely overpriced. You need to be aware of these watches to make sure that you don't get stung. I have been guilty myself in buying some of the watches featured on today's video. So I'm here to pass on the knowledge and experience to you to hopefully avoid you getting stung like I did. Let's get started. Now, I recently picked up my first ever luxury watch. I sold a lot of my collection and combined the cash to buy one bigger piece. However, I let my senses drop when purchasing it and was left with a sorer head than New Year's morning. Breitling is one of my favourite watch brands in the industry, so I picked up the Colt Ocean. Typically, they sell for around $1,500 on the secondary market. However, this one popped up for around $1,000. My birthday had come early. Well, so I thought. The watch was a bit beaten up, with plenty of scratches and dings all over the case, which I assumed was why the seller was selling it so cheap. After I got the watch, I was disappointed. The watch was in pretty bad shape and it ruined the whole experience for me. I had sold around 8 watches that I absolutely loved, and in the end I had a Breitling that looked like it had went 12 rounds with Tyson Fury. Moral of the story? Well, don't buy a watch just because it's cheap. Don't let your standards drop just because it's a good deal. Now, if you can't afford a luxury watch, you have a few options. You can either buy a homage, you can buy an alternative, or you can buy a replica. However, the latter of the three is one that I would completely avoid at all costs. You might really want a Rolex, but don't have a spare $20,000 in cash to pay for one. I don't blame you, neither do I. But I will always recommend buying an alternative and not a replica. After all, buying a replica watch is completely illegal, and the people creating replica watches are criminals, and who knows what they're going to do with the money that you spend. I bought a cheap fake Moonswatch secondhand on eBay. This was to make an informative video to stop people getting scammed when looking at buying a Moonswatch on the secondary market. I was disappointed with the level of detail on the Moonswatch clone. It didn't even come close to the original, and it ended up in the trash where it belongs. Never buy a replica. If you wear a fake watch, in my opinion, you are a fake person. There is one question that I get asked all the time. Hey, top tier ticker, which watch should I buy as an investment? And no matter how much money you have or what your taste in watches even is, I will always give the same answer. Buying a watch as an investment is such a bad way of going about watch collecting. If you buy investment watches, then you aren't even a watch enthusiast, but instead a money enthusiast. If the only reason you're buying a watch is because of the monetary value, what does that say about you as a person? Well, you're insecure, need validation, and have no taste. There is nothing wrong with wanting to buy a watch that holds its value. After all, we don't want to lose all of our money, but buying a watch simply with the hope of making money in the future is just embarrassing. Instead, you should buy a watch that you like. Buy a watch that gets you excited, one that you want to wear because you appreciate the design and history, not how much money it's worth. Scalpers and flippers are a very real thing in the watch collecting world. They'll buy up all of the models that everybody wants and sell them for a huge profit. Now, you might think that that only happens with the likes of Rolex, but you'd be very wrong. Take the Casio Tiffany that got released early this year, for example. A watch that retails for only $50, but they're sold out and selling on places like eBay for over $100. Don't make the scalpers rich by giving them your money, because they're the type of people to go out and buy a fake Rolex to flex their toxic behavior. You should always stay patient with a watch purchase. Never pay over retail for a watch. After all, if you're paying over retail, someone else is taking your money right from your pocket and putting it into their own. If you stay patient, the scalpers, aka the little rats, get stung holding a watch that they don't even care about. Have you ever bought a watch and it gets worn less than that horrible sweater your auntie got you for Christmas one year? Yeah, me too. I believe that this comes down to one thing: buying a watch that you think you need, but it doesn't actually suit your style. Take me, for example. I like to dress casually. I like to wear t-shirts, shorts, sweaters, and sneakers. You won't catch me nip into the shop for a loaf of bread and an iceberg lettuce in a turtleneck and a suit jacket. It's just not who I am. But I was sucked into the idea that a collection should feature dress watches, so naturally I picked up a few dress pieces. I found myself putting them on occasionally, but never really wearing them outside of the house. After all, wearing an Orient Bambino with a Pokemon t-shirt is a bit of a weird flex. Point is, buy watches that suit your style, not watches that others tell you that you need to have in your collection. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. How could I possibly make a watches to avoid list and not talk about the smartwatch? watch. Unless you're a teenager that's getting tons of texts off your crush in the classroom, I honestly see no point in getting one. The smartwatch is the biggest threat to traditional watchmaking that has ever existed. It's crazy that these things are even allowed to be marketed as a watch because they just aren't. They're a mini mobile phone strapped to your wrist. And if you already have a phone in your pocket, why the hell do you need one on your wrist too? If someone says because of the fitness capabilities, then yes, that's great. But you should absolutely consider getting yourself a fitness Casio G-Shock instead. It tracks steps, heart rate, sleep, all of that good stuff that fitness freaks love. And you don't have a watch that will stop being supported by the manufacturer in a few years and you'll have to throw it down the toilet. One of the biggest mistakes of watch collecting happens at the very start, when new watch collectors are uneducated about the watches that they're trying to buy, which leads them to buying some hot rubbish from a high street fashion shop that's worth about as much as a coffee from Starbucks. This is a fashion watch that I bought in 2015. Notice how badly it's aged in just 8 years. Avoid the fashion watch at all costs. Brands like Tommy Hilfiger, Armani, and Hugo Boss sell an eye-watering amount of watches every single year, which of course is a huge shame when genuine watchmakers are creating fantastic pieces for the same price. Don't be fooled by the likes of Movement and Daniel Wellington into buying one of their watches, marketing them as affordable luxury. This just doesn't exist. It's impossible for something to be affordable and luxury at the same time. After all, the main reason something feels luxurious is the exclusivity and the price that you pay. My rule is, if the watch brand also sells an aftershave, avoid it like the plague. Some watches have a reputation online that is almost impossible to live up to. They have more hype behind them than the finale of a popular TV show, but in both instances it tends to lead to a lot of disappointment. If a watch has tons of hype online, great. That can be for a few reasons. Maybe it's the specifications, or maybe it's just good value for money, but don't jump the gun yet. Think first whether the watch is right for you. You may think that in order to be a serious watch enthusiast that you need to own a certain watch, maybe the Tissot PRX for example, but this is far from the truth. There is no single watch that defines that you like watches. What you'll probably end up realizing is that the hype is just a phase. At the end of the day, these are just pieces of steel that tell the time. They don't cure illness or make you feel warm at night. 99% of watches are worth less money the moment that you walk out of the doors of the authorized dealer. However, some watches depreciate quicker than a bottle of water on a desert island. It's important to understand which watches these are so you don't get left holding the bag. Even the most respected enthusiast brands like Seiko depreciate when you buy them brand new. It's just a factor of life. But some brands will leave you with a bigger burn than spending a few hours on a Thai beach. Brands like Hublot and Cartier sell certain models that are almost half in value the minute you peel off the stickers. Now there's nothing wrong with buying these watches if they're the ones that you want, but it's worth considering buying them second hand instead. Take the Hublot Classic Fusion for example. Over 5 grand brand new, 3 grand second hand. That is a lot of money just to be the first person to open the box. You might think that bigger is better, but in the world of watch collecting, usually the opposite is true. And when I personally see someone wearing a humongous watch on their wrist, I think to myself, I wonder what they're trying to compensate for. Wearing a huge watch doesn't make you look cool. It certainly doesn't make you look more masculine. It just makes you look like a bit of an idiot. First of all, let's get the practical side of things out of the way. If a watch is getting in the way when opening a door handle, it's probably too big. If your loved one has a black eye from the last time that you tried to give them a hug, it's probably too big. It makes no sense to wear a watch that's designed for Bigfoot if you're an average size human being. Of course, if you are the size of Bigfoot, go ahead, have your fun. But it's so much more classy, in my opinion, to wear a delicate little piece. It takes someone that is confident in their own skin to wear a dainty little dress watch. Avoid large watches. They make you look a bit silly. Be sure to visit the toptierticker.com official watch store for the very best in affordable, pre-owned and discontinued watches. Link is in the description. If you liked this video and want to hear me talk some more trash about other watches, be sure to watch my video here on screen on 10 watches that suck to own.